G'day and thanks for joining us for another Australia Talks. I'm DK and I'm joined as always with my lovely co-host Ardeet. Today is Thursday, the 26th of February 2026, and our topics this week are humanoid robots. They're here, but is this something we actually want, especially in our homes? And a scam victim. He sued his bank for $379 million and had some success. We'll get into that. Bit of a story, that one. Of course, we've got our Two Ticks Town Talk, and then we'll jump into This Week in Australian History and finish off, as always, with the 4X Bottle Top Trivia. But before we get into all of that, before we catch up on the last week, it's time for Croc Watch.
Let there be 1,000 blossoms bloom, as far as I'm concerned. But I ain't spending any time on it, because in the meantime, every 3 months, a person is torn to pieces by a crocodile in North Queensland.
Croc Watch this week, we're actually talking about a place up in the Australian Northern Territory called Cahill's Crossing. It's called the world's deadliest water crossing. Now, these labels, you always take them as you will. However, this one has got it's got a pretty good claim to that. It's across the East Alligator River, and yes, we don't have alligators here in Oz. We have crocodiles. I'm not sure where that original misnomer was, but the Alligator River is a tidal river. It's in the remote Kakadu National Park, and this flooded causeway, when the massive tides transform it into a torrent, or you get the wet season, it will sweep dozens of vehicles off this the crossing. I've put it in the show notes. I've put a link to a video showing Cahill's Crossing, Cahill's Crossing, and also a bit of a story about it. The thing is, the river is infested with crocs. Rangers can sometimes document like 120 saltwater crocs just in the 6 kilometres upstream from the crossing alone. They can usually see 40 visible at a time, and they'll either be lounging on the road, blocking the paths of the cars, or ambushing from the edge, going after fish and that. So there's a reason there's so many of them at that time. It's late in the dry season, which is September to November. The floodplains dry out, and that sort of funnels all the crocs into this tidal hotspot. And also those tides push fish like mullet and barramundi upstream. And as we see in nature with crocs are no exception. This creates a feeding frenzy. So, we see it all through nature. The food comes up, the predators come out, and they hook into it. There's actually 3 platforms up there so that you can watch this. Watch this happening.
Sit and watch. Yeah.
Yeah. You can also watch the silly gooses trying to get across. There's a croc expert, Graham Webb, who points out, look, for every croc you see, there's 10 that are lurking unseen. And that 400 stretch where you go across is sort of like the epicenter of it. And look, unsurprisingly, there's been people who think they can fish there or walk across or take a chance in their car, but even low tide's the time to go across. Even once it gets up a bit higher, the 4x4s will go. Some people try and do it in regular cars, and I have actually been across this crossing many years ago. Fortunately, thanks to one of my hunting mates. G'day again, Professor. Thankfully, he's got a bloody good memory. It's better than mine. I knew we had gone across a crossing up there when we'd done some a hunting trip up north. And so unprompted, I said, "What was the name of it?" He said, it was like Cahill's Crossing," and it was something that I think is going to stick with me for ages, because we were there and we had 2 cars, and the guide we were with, he was bloody umming and ahhing, and we were sort of a case of, do we go now, or, do we stay here for, it was going to be, I don't know, something like, another 8 hours till the tide turned. And in the end, we decided to go. And I think I might have mentioned this before on the podcast, but I'll mention again. So we were driving across this sort of strip of concrete, which you can't actually see because it's covered in water, but there are rocks marking one side. So you stick close to the rocks. Literally meters from the window was just crocs watching us. Some of them were grabbing at barramundi, so you'd see these jaws come up and just like there's this big sort of like try clapping down on them. Others of them were just sussing you out, and you're looking there and you're thinking, if something goes wrong, there's not a chance in hell I could run fast enough or swim fast enough across the remaining, 100 and so meters. I just thought, well, if something happens, we're stuffed. You can't get out of the car. And then the tide would be going up, so you're going to get washed into the river anyway. So, yeah, that will stick with me. But, I thought have a look at the video. And have a look at that story or looking up. It's amazing to see that many crocs in the one spot. So, yeah, it's an interesting spot. So, yeah, Carl's Crossing. And just thought you might be interested in hearing about it in this week's Croc Watch.
Very good. This is one of these crossings that I haven't had the pleasure of doing it yet, but I am keen to one day. I'm sure I'll get an opportunity and I'd love to, but I've seen the videos of people getting washed away there, and this is one God. That I feel like so people understand where this is. This is up in the Northern Territory outside of Darwin. It's sort of the entrance to Arnhem Land, and so for very few people need to make that crossing in a risky situation. It's not like it's a major, like it is a major road in the sense that to get to this area, it is the way you have to go. But the reason it exists and that there's not a bridge is because there's not enough traffic to justify the cost of building a more significant crossing. So I do feel like it has become a bit of not a tourist trap, but a bit of a rite of passage for a lot of four-wheel drivers up in the territory to kind of give it a go. And unfortunately, people have died. Quite a few, actually.
Yeah.
Only a couple of years ago, a bloke, same thing, being a bit of a idiot, crossing at high tide. When that river flows, it doesn't matter how big your car is, it's just going to sweep it off, sweep it over the side, or you're going to get stuck. And as soon as you try and climb out, the crocs just grab you.
Yeah,
so,
I know crocs give you the heebie-jeebies as well. I've been thinking I'd probably prefer to drown rather than just want to get chopped by a croc.
I completely agree. Stay in your car. This is the only time I would give you the advice of don't try and flee your vehicle. Just drown quietly in your car. We can drag your body out later. Because the alternative is we just watch you get torn to shreds by the crocodile. So, look, this is what we said it many times. If it's flooded, forget it. There are exceptions to that, obviously. There's normally water across the road at the best of times, even in the dry season. There's sort of, and if you do go in the dry season, and there are times where there's hardly any water. It's basically just a big puddle, and you can just drive straight across it, no danger at all. But this is one of those ones where if it's not like that often, often it is a pretty hairy crossing, and you just got to be sensible, be careful. Yeah. Like don't be silly about it. So if you don't know what we're talking about, especially if you are one of our international listeners, go and even if you just Google it, there'll be, as Ardeet said, there's stuff in the show notes. Go and have a look because it is really interesting. Bit of the Wild West, and even for Australia, like it does feel a little bit out of place. We're so obsessed with safety and all of that stuff these days. The fact that roads like this still exist is look. You wouldn't be allowed to do it today. Let's just say that.
Well, you made that comment about how many people use it, but the other thing is there's no point building a bridge because it would get washed away every wet season.
Yeah, true.
So
true.
it's arguably it's the best or close to the best they can do. Anyway, just pour bloody concrete on there and keep the road happening.
Basically, yeah.
Croc Watch.
All right, well,
there you go.
What else have you been up to other than battling crocs?
Yeah. Well, go have a KYC whinge and know your customer. Bloody. I don't know whether people out there are having the same experience. I've now spoken to a couple of people, and it seems like this is just being ramped up by the bureaucrats. So in the financial industry here, there's and lots of other places, probably where you're listening from as well, wherever you are with mates of the podcast, and Japan, South Korea, US, Germany, you're all going to have this type of thing. So know your customer. Went to do a share trade in the in our share trading platform. Said, you're not authorised to trade, and thinking, log out, log back in, see if so got through the it wasn't too hard to get through, which was a plus. And they said, no, ANZ is actually owns this. This used to be E-Trade, and then ANZ bought it out. They said, and they've put a stop on your account because they've got some KYC recommendations. Well, I think so. Without going into all the gritty details, we finally got onto the right mob in ANZ, and they said, we've got to get this information, that information. Forget the fact that they already had half of it. And they said, well, of course you need to do this. We'll get this. It's normally 24 to 48 hours, but we'll get this done in 24 hours for you. Within the 6 days it took to get it fixed up, we did have to contact them a couple more times. So it wasn't bloody 24 hours, but it was a case of, rather than just contact and say, by the way, they reckoned that they had sent us stuff, which is rubbish, because from what they said they'd sent, there's no way they could have missed us, particularly with Mrs. Ardeet. She's on the ball with these things. So we're trying to work that out from that side. But you think, just rather than, put it up so that there's a note in there saying, listen, we've just got to get this information from you. And so that one frustrated me. Went down to the bank to, had to get some cash out for some work we were getting done. She goes, hang on, you've got to do a KYC with us. It's been 2 years. And I'm thinking, 2 years? How much is bloody changing in 2 years? I'm having a real whinge here, but I am. It got up my nose. And then, so okay. And the thing is, you can't say, no, stuff you, because then they'll sort of say, well, we've got your money. What do you want to do about it? And then spoke to we happened to be speaking with the financial advisor as well, and I said to him, out of interest, have the bureaucrats been pushing you on KYC at all? And I could see by the look of it on his face that the answer was yeah, and he did confirm that. But the thing that, and I'll finish on this one, believe me, this is the shorter version, the thing that just did my head in was, he has been told that if he and a colleague are working on someone's account, they're not allowed to discuss suspicions that they might have with each other. They have to sort of keep a little bit of a whatever that's called, iron curtain, paper curtain, or they have to keep a bit of a wall between them with that. But if his colleague goes and reports it to the authorities, as they're required to do, and he doesn't, then he potentially has a whole lot of trouble from them saying, hang on, why didn't you pick up what your colleagues picked up? And they start to give him grief for it. So I thought that was a little, almost a bloody Stalinist type of thing there. It just really surprised me on that. So Yes, look, I've generally been going okay, but yeah, that got up my nose. So, yeah, that's my little know your customer. Whinge, I feel a bit better now. Thanks, DK. Thanks, mates of the podcast, for having a bit of a listen to that. What have you been up to? Or any comments on that?
If you want to get Ardeet angry, just put more red tape, more paperwork in front of him. Lose his mind. Oh gosh, I've been so busy. I can't even begin to think. I had a bit of a short little getaway for a friend's birthday over the weekend. I can't remember if I mentioned this last week or not. And it was fantastic. It was so good.
So that was camping out, you said?
Yeah, camping out, a little local place, and well, it wasn't that local. It was an hour away. Yeah, it was absolutely fantastic. Good times, good vibes with some mates. Very much what I think I needed. A little bit of a break. You know, life can get stressful and all that sort of stuff. So I would say, you know, if you're feeling the same way, especially in the new year. I mean, you know, it feels like Christmas holidays were a year ago, but at the same time, you look at the calendar and go, they weren't that long ago. I think now's a good time for, if you're listening to this and you're going, yeah, I need a bit of a break. The grind is already getting me down. Have a couple of days away if you can. Doesn't have to be expensive. In this case, it was very cheap. I think the food cost us the most amount of money, and which was just fantastic. We found a nice little spot to chill out, and it was really.
What was
good.
your favourite meal that you prepared?
When we're camping like that, I only bring meat.
Of course.
Because
obviously.
Meat and beer. We did have some eggs. We did cook some eggs in the morning. Egg and bacon sandwich was pretty good. Definitely helped with the hangover. We did have potatoes. We had some potatoes that we wrapped up in alfoil with a little bit of butter and some herbs and spices, and we wrapped them up, put them around the hot coals around the fire. We had a roaring fire. None of us sat around it because it was too bloody hot. But we still had it.
You still got to have it, don't you?
Gotta have it, right? Had plenty of firewood. So, we had a nice fire. Those spuds cooked in the hot coals, absolutely fantastic. Every time. Absolutely incredible. So, and a nice big steak. Can't go wrong. Just fantastic, you know. The best. Great experience, great friends. I know a couple of the boys listen to the podcast, so cheers, fellas. We'll definitely have to do it again later this year sometime. I think the wives are kind of happy to kick us out as well.
Why not? Of course.
Yeah.
Let's not beat around the bush. Of course they are.
Yeah, get rid of us for a couple of nights and everything. So, yeah. It was fantastic. So,
sounds excellent.
It's been raining here all day, so grumble. Weather is crap again. Not a surprise. And but in all honesty, we actually needed a bit of rain because it hasn't rained since the last time it rained a few weeks ago. So a little bit of rain would be nice. Keep the grass green and all of that. So
yeah, send a bit down our way. We need more.
Which is surprising. Victoria's known to be quite wet, but then it's not, you know?
Well, where I am, we've had, from the last couple of dumps, the last couple of months, it's just sort of done a little bit of a turn and missed most of the peninsula. Don't know why, but yeah. So we've got, you know, we've sort of got about 10% of what they've got, you know, up near town.
Oh,
yeah, bit of a dud.
You need to power down the dome that you got running. The weather. All right. Speaking of weather, I got nothing.
I thought you were going to say speaking of technological advances.
Yeah, that's where I was thinking. But yeah, the brain's too slow today. Humanoid home robots. They are on the market. You can buy one today. But is this something you really want? Last year, Norwegian-US tech company 1X announced a new strange product, the world's first consumer-ready humanoid robot designed to transform home life. standing 168 centimeters tall. Sorry, Americans, I don't know what that is in feet and inches. It's
what was it, did you say?
168, so that's probably like 5 feet.
Yeah,
something.
5'2", something like that.
Something
Let's
like
say
that.
that's what it is. Yeah.
168 centimeters tall and weighing 30 kilograms. I think that's like 20 pounds. No, 60 pounds, something like 50 pounds. I don't know. Figure it out.
We normally do it for you, but not today.
Yeah, I didn't do it today. So, standing 168 centimeters tall and weighing 30 kilograms, the $20,000 US Neo bot promises to automate common household chores such as folding laundry and loading the dishwasher. Neo has a built-in artificial intelligence system, but for tricky tasks, it requires a 1X employee wearing a virtual reality helmet to remotely take over the robot. The operator can see whatever the bot does inside your home, obviously, and the process is recorded for future learning as well. This feels a bit icky to me, straight off the bat, especially when you consider those remote workers could be from anywhere in the world, and you wouldn't really know. But anyway, other household androids are expected to hit the market later this year and into the future. But Neo shows the issues at play, which will be familiar to anyone that has watched the AI boom over the last few years. Products launched with great fanfare and limited capabilities, concealing privacy risks and invisible remote workers behind the scenes. Despite huge technical progress, these robots are still quite clunky at handling everyday tasks in homes or hospitals or other uncontrolled environments. While specialized robots such as vacuum cleaners have become a familiar sight, the fact remains that human homes just aren't designed for robots. And for many fiddly tasks such as folding laundry, there are more specialized machines that do a better job that are currently on the market. To improve performance, the robots will need a lot of real-world data, and the best way to gather that data is simply putting the machines in people's homes. And the data in question will include a lot of intimate detail about people's lives and of specific people's lives, which raises big questions about privacy. What I mean by that is like certain people with disabilities and things like that may have needs outside of the typical norm, but are a big enough cohort that require the training into those specific needs. Behind the scenes, at least for now, humans will be at the controls. Remote control online labor in tech industry is growing, and we think that can increase socioeconomic inequality and have negative impacts on people in developing countries working long hours for low pay, often exposed to potentially disturbing scenes and content. Can you imagine if you were a fly on the wall of some random person's home, what you may witness? Sure, not all of it's going to be good.
No, pretty sure.
Especially if you very much do need to be part of the furniture. According to the International Federation of Robotics, useful and widely accepted home androids may still be 20 years away. Autonomous humanoid robots will undoubtedly improve as products with the integration of large language models and other generative AI systems. In the long term, dexterity, navigation, learning, and autonomy will get better, that is almost certain, but it will require years of research and investment. Humanoid robots will not be immediately available as convincing and useful commercial products. I think everyone probably believes that to be true. Concerns around remote work may fade too. Just last week, 1X announced a software update for its robots that it says will mean less human involvement behind the scenes. Privacy concerns are an inherent risk of the technology. An incredibly sophisticated robot in your home will inevitably collect intimate data about your life, opening a new frontier for data exploitation and potential breaches. But despite all these issues, humanoid robots will keep inspiring scientists, engineers, and designers, and by all means, let them inspire us. but we should maybe think twice before letting them stack our dishwashers in our homes. The very obvious question for me, for you, is will you buy one of these as they currently exist? Like, are you chomping at the bit to get one? And if I think that's probably going to be no. But the second question, the follow-up question would be, what do you think it would take for them? At what level and what caveats do you have before you'd let one into your home?
Completely in favour of them. It's going to be something that will fundamentally change society. They will become a commodity item in the same way that fridges and washing machines and other things are commodity items. The idea of it, the concept is a 100% unequivocal, definite yes for me. The current version, which, you know, I'm not even considering version 1, it's more in almost in beta testing. Not a chance I'd bother with that. I've seen those, and in terms of what can be done, it is impressive. But the humanoid robot that I get, and I was saying to Mr. Ardeet last year, I said, look, they're blowing the trumpet about how this is, you know, just around the corner, and it's going to be, you know, the year of the robot and everything. I have been through enough of these things that I just added 10 years to that. So I said my estimate is in 12 years, possibly a bit less, but my estimate is in 12 years I'll definitely have 1, maybe 2 humanoid robots in the house. I've got very, very little doubt that it will be otherwise. I love the idea of it. I'm big fan of them. I see there's this plans to be leasing them. I think you'll be able to buy them. It will have to be completely autonomous. There's no way that I want to have one that has a need for a human to do some tasks. And I have seen them do that and do it remotely. And certainly some skills doing it remotely, but it's just slow, it's clunky, and it's somebody watching. So that's not the dream. The dream is this device, this tool being autonomous. And I do think AI has been, it comes up all the time. I think, it finds its way into so many stories, but there is no doubt that AI is just still on a very steep trajectory upwards. I know there's calls of what's it going to do, and you've still got to produce money with it. There's a whole lot of negatives you can say about it, but it's an unstoppable force. We can do what we like and try and stop it. It will happen. If it doesn't happen by us, it'll happen by other power. Well, I say us in the Western world. It'll happen. China's not going to stop with it. Russia's not going to stop with it. Other countries aren't going to stop with it. AI is happening, and one way or the other, it'll get there. We're seeing the levels that it can go to. We're seeing with robots that they have very dexterous hands, which is important, but they also have other sensors in there. They're very mobile. We haven't quite got that nexus. It's like the development of robots and the development of AI are just approaching this point. Once they hit that nexus and pass beyond it, it will go so quickly. This is all my opinion, but I'm highly confident in it, as I often am with my opinion. But once we reach that nexus, it will go so fast, so quick. It's similar to what we're seeing at the moment with driverless cars. Yeah, some purists would argue that's essentially a robot anyway. But we've seen this situation where driverless cars have gone from a bit of a dream, something sort of a little bit of a, I don't know, bit interesting, and yeah, maybe one day, and it's gone to the point now where it can be done. It's basically just regulation that's stopping it, and the vision of planners for cities and the lawmakers. Yeah, it's been demonstrated beyond doubt that driverless vehicles are much safer within a certain amount of parameters, say in a predominantly urban and semi-urban environment, undoubtedly safer than a human driver. You know, the statistics don't lie on that. And we will see the same thing with the robots, and in AI, they'll reach that point, and within, 10 years of that, people will sort of think, well, how is it ever going to be any different? You know, it will no longer be magic. It'll be commonplace. The security is an issue. I do agree with the security, and this is one of the things that I struggle with, because I'm one of those people who's a bit paranoid about privacy, but I'm also one of those people who accepts that there's certain levels of privacy that have been lost and gone, and I also know my capabilities, and I can do the equivalent of putting a good lock on the door, but I can't stop a burglar. So, if you've got the intelligence agencies, for example, or government bureaucrats who really want to get details, they'll get them. So it doesn't mean you have to make it easy. There'll be, I imagine there'll be services offered where you can increase the privacy of your robot or your humanoid, Android, whatever they're going to get called, or that'll be a selling point for a company like Apple's. Always talking about the privacy. They're not bad on the privacy side. They're not completely, but they're better than a jailbroken Android phone. So they might have a similar thing there. And the final point before I throw it over to you is on the humanoid side. It's certainly true that you can have things like Roombas. We've got a couple of Roombas. We've had them for, I don't know how long we've had them for, like 15 years or something, and they zoom off and they do their job. And it's certainly true that in the future, as these machines become more capable, you will get variations. We see that in some of the variations with the robots with the dog designs or the rolling balls, or unusual designs. But it is a human world at the moment, and if you want to get the most out of what we've got, you've got to put that human form factor in. So that'll change eventually. But at the moment, a human form factor is the way to go. AI and robotics are just about to meet, and big fan of it. And if we're still doing the podcast in 10 years, 12 years, I'll be telling you what my home humanoid robot has done. So so that's you probably picked up there how I feel about it. What about you, DK? How do you feel about them? And ask the same question to you. Are you chomping at the bit to get one? What do you think about the current version, and what do you expect is going to happen?
I am certainly not chomping at the bit to get one. I think I am sort of lucky in that I'm happy to delay my purchasing of one. Like, I'm not against the concept, right? I have children, and they're basically my
your little robots.
My little robots. They do the dishes, they fold the washing, all that stuff, right? But they're growing up, and they'll age out, and they'll move on. Hopefully. If they don't, then great, don't need a robot. When they do, then I'll need the robot, because there ain't no way I'm going back to doing that shit. So, I'm not against the idea. I think for me, there's a threshold that needs to cross to, and it's basically around privacy, right? I don't like the idea that someone can remote in and essentially, not even do weird stuff like walk around my house at night or something like that. It's more like just being the fly on the wall day to day, I don't know. It just feels a bit sinister in a way that It's probably just me being a little bit paranoid. Like, oh, well, what does it matter? What are they going to do? The reality is not much, right? And the reality is I have one of those little robot vacuum cleaners, as a lot of people do these days. They've got cameras on them. I've got the Google Home speakers and stuff like that in my house. So, they can listen to you at any time. It'll be pretty bloody boring to listen to, if I'm honest. There's not a lot of incriminating information being said out loud in my house. But I think there's a point where they'll be good enough that I'll go, yep, and I'll get one, and it'll be great, and it'll be really, really useful. And I think this will be a game changer for certain groups of people, like older people with certain disabilities and stuff like that. You can give them a lot of independence because you do have this other presence. I also think it's going to help a lot of lonely people too, which I know it kind of sounds quite sad, like, oh no, we're replacing people with robots. But the reality is there are a lot of lonely people now anyway. So let's give them a companion that can be a bit more interactive than, say, like a dog or something like that. And it certainly doesn't need to replace the dog. You can have the dog and the robot. But the robot, if something goes wrong, the robot can call 000 or maybe a family member, or, it's a bit more interactive. That's a little bit of a slippery slope then. I think there's definitely going to be problems with people getting too attached to their home robot. But there are already people that are falling in love with ChatGPT and crap like that anyway. I feel like that's more of a individual with social dysfunction problem, as opposed to we shouldn't have robots because people might fall in love with them.
Yeah.
So if we put that can of worms aside for a second, I'd get one, just not now. I think it would take quite a while. And I'm also not the sort of person that I used to be like quite heavy on. I want to be the early adopter. Like I want to jump on this train early and see what it's all about. I'm not really like that anymore. And I do want to get a good product in the end that does what I expect it to do, not be a beta tester or anything like that.
More of a version 2 man.
Yeah, but probably even beyond that, if I'm honest. Probably like version 3 or 4, fast forward 10 years. Because they're out now, right? So the version 4 that comes out in, say, 10 years' time will probably be really, really good and very, very useful. I do think there's something in the design and sort of psychology around the design, like the one we were sort of talking about, the 1X Neo. As I understand it isn't particularly strong, deliberately, so that there is no fear that it could turn evil and strangle you in the night or something like that. You will be able to overpower it. I think at most its joints can flex to like 50 kilos or something like that. It deliberately couldn't like pick you up off the floor or something like that.
It probably could sneak into your room at night and strangle you, though. I mean,
it might be able to smother you with a pillow or something. Sure. Yeah.
Stack up chairs either side of the bed and push them over to trap you, and then put all this weight on your face with a pillow. But it's unlikely to happen.
Very unlikely to happen. But again, this. I'm sure there's someone that's listening to this going, I've just got a great idea for a book. Yes, you do. Murdered by the robot. Yeah. Remotely, someone remotes in and uses the robot to murder them. Fantastic plot, and I'm sure we're going to see that if it's not already in the works somewhere already. So
I think slowly poison you in your sleep, like
they could, little drips. There's lots of things they could do, right? That's why I have a lock on my bedroom door. So, there's some valid concerns, but I do think these companies are kind of aware of the decades at this point, almost 50 years of media around how evil robots can be. So I do think, people are quite skeptical. I think there's going to be quite a high threshold for the average person to want one of these in their house. I think and I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's quite a good thing that the average person is going to look at this and go, one, this is an expensive piece of technology, like more expensive than like a smartphone or a little vacuum robot, right? So explain to me the benefits to me that I get from this robot outside of specific use cases like, you know, you have a certain disability or whatever. The average person, the average able-bodied person, why do I need this? Like, you know, find me a need that I need to fulfill. Because folding laundry and doing the dishes is great, 2 thumbs up, but I'm not spending $20,000 to not have to do those anymore. There are definitely going to be people that are, but I think the average person probably isn't. So I think the price would have to come down quite a bit. If it was like maybe like $5,000, I think a lot of people would be happy to pay that amount of money.
How much a month would you pay for a device that cleaned your home almost to the level that you would clean it? As in, you could say to it, what's just sort of thinking of things that Miss Ardeet, like that you could that it would wipe down the what do you call the things? Skirting boards, wipe them down with a wet cloth. It would get the cobwebs out. It would vacuum and wash the floors. It would put away your dishes. It would do your washing. It would go out into the garden and do some weeding. And so tasks like that, and do them to your satisfaction almost as good as you or one of your kids doing them. How much would you pay a month for something like that?
See, this is hard because if I was paying a cleaner, I'd probably be paying, which is essentially what this is, right? So if I was paying like a cleaner / gardener, you know, you'd be minimum paying, say, $30 an hour, probably more, but absolute bare minimum, you'd be paying that. So if you had them, say 5 hours a week, they were at your house doing this sort of stuff, that's $150 a week right there, right? So, you know, per year, that's almost $8,000 you're paying for that service. So I think if you position it like that, you could charge like $10,000 and be like, this is going to save you all your cleaning costs. The thing is how many people outside of, again, disability services, how many average Joe people have a cleaner? I think there's a certain group of wealthy people that definitely do. There's also a lot of people that are like, I can afford it, but I just don't see, like, I just don't want to. It's not a waste of money, but like, I want to use my money for other things. That's not a priority for me. So I think there's sort of this cost benefit analysis that every individual person's going to do, and the cheaper that robot becomes, the more likely that pushes into let's get it. Especially like, and it's all the details, right? Like, how long does it last? Is there an ongoing subscription fee as well? Is there only a subscription fee? Is it like $200 a month and I have this thing in my house for as long as I want? Suddenly that becomes quite a good deal, actually.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. You structure the deal that way. If there's something wrong with your robot, they either fix it remotely or they drop off a new one. It packs the other one into a case and sends it off, and you don't have to worry about anything. All you have to do is it's like Netflix. You turn it on and there it is. You don't have to worry about anything else.
And I do think that is probably the way we're going to see a lot of these done, is a subscription-based sort of model, and people are going to go, I've got my thing, it costs me this amount of money, and I can cancel it or whatever, and it's really, really useful. We are seeing people work longer hours. We're also seeing a lot of people work longer hours, but also wanting to live and not have to, particularly, and I don't want to like single anyone out here, but I know particularly a lot of younger people are kind of like, I work these long hours, I come home, the last thing I want to do is cleaning and stuff. And I totally get it. And so they go, if I can pay a bit of money to not have to do this, I absolutely will. And so I think there's that sweet spot that these companies, and this is kind of the not the problem, like the challenge these companies are going to have of finding where that sweet spot is of here's the device that's going to run around your house, clean everything up. You can throw your laundry at it, do my stuff, and it can just get it done. And I think it has to be designed in a way that's comforting. So I think the Neo, as an example, is actually quite well done. It's covered in fabric. If you don't know what it looks like, Google the One X Neo. It's covered in fabric that I believe comes off, so it's kind of like a suit, so you can wash it if it gets dirty or whatever.
Or it can wear your skin.
Yeah, good.
I may be small, but I know how to use a knife.
It's small. That's right. Like it's specifically not very big. Deliberately, again, because they don't want it to be like an ominous present. I feel like if it was too lanky or tall, it'd be a bit scary. It needs to be small, like.
I reckon people will get over that so quickly. I think once you're looking at this little 30 kilogram thing, and you go over to your mate's house and they've got the 150 kilogram one that's lifting up a table, vacuuming under that, going out there doing things that you need actual strength for, and it's got over that hump of having a bit of confidence in it. I think people will say, give me the biggest bang for buck that's not going to bump its head on the doorway, and go for it. I think people will become so accustomed to it. And I also think too, with their, when you're talking about that leasing thing, I can imagine, say if you're going back to using the example of younger people that's thinking, well, we don't want to have to do all this stuff while we're working. You get 3 households of them, and they say, okay, well, you can either put it in the self-driving car, and we'll each have it for a day at a time, and so we'll have it at our place every second or third day, and it just takes itself to the place, does the stuff, goes up the other one, and it only costs them a third of what the hiring thing is. I think there's a lot of ways you can get this out to the consumer market. Yeah,
that's true. I do think there's sweet spots, right? And that's actually a good one of do they geo-lock it into a specific area, or can you, like you say, put it in the self-driving car and it drives itself over there and then does your mate's dishes or whatever, and then comes home, or vice versa, where you own it and you rent it out for so many hours a week and stuff like that, and it goes to some random's house and does a thing. And so look, there's opportunities there. I think there's a big part of me that goes, this is very exciting and could be really, really cool. And this is like the future that I like. But there's also like the dark side of it. And it's very easy to really focus on that, because I think it's worth remembering, since like the late 70s, we've kind of been bombarded with media of like, the robots are definitely going to kill us all. So it's kind of hard to like put that aside for a second and be like, no, what's the reality of the situation and stuff like that. So these companies, I do feel, are definitely pushing uphill. There's a lot of resistance and pushback from the general public, and they do have to be really smart about their designs and making sure that it's like a human-focused design and stuff like that. But you are right. I guarantee you there's going to be agricultural units and like search and rescue, and before we know it, there'll be police versions and stuff. So it's just gonna happen, and people are just gonna have to get used to it. And before you know it, it'll be like Star Wars. There'll be big ass giant robots walking around everywhere, and it's just part of life. And the younger generations will be like, all right, shut up, old man, with your non-robot history. I remember when I used to have to fold the washing myself. It's like, how old are you?
I was born last century. Oh my god.
So look, this is an interesting one. Look, if you've got a wildly different opinion on this, if you're like genuinely terrified of this, I'm quite interested and would love to know your thoughts. Because I feel like the two of us kind of have a similar idea. I'm a little bit more skeptical than you, a little bit. But reach out to us at australiatalks@proton.me. We love to hear from you guys, particularly if you have a different opinion, or not. If you think this is really cool and you can't wait, or even if you've got one. Please, if you have one already, or you know someone that's have one, I want to know. Reach out and let's have a chat. All right, it's time to move on. Let's go to our Two Ticks Town Talk.
I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere, man. Across the desert, fair man. I've breathed the mountain air, man. I've traveled.
All right, this week's Two Ticks Town Talk is a quick one. It's all about what's on the ground or what's in the ground, and also what's not on the ground. This week we're heading to northern New South Wales, literally on the border with Queensland, as close as you can be to Queensland without being in Queensland. We're specifically going to a place called Bald Rock National Park because by this point, my dear listeners, you should know that I love weird rocks. So this is a Two Ticks Rock Talk. So the Bald Rock National Park is named after its most prominent feature, Bald Rock, which is a very large granite outcrop. It rises 260 meters above the surrounding landscape and is almost 1,300 meters above sea level. It's quite large. It's about 750 meters long and about 500 meters wide, and this makes it the largest granite monolith in Australia. It's also sometimes called a granite dome because of the shape. Which is also why it's called Bald Rock, because it kind of looks like the back of someone's head.
So I've just looked up a picture of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
This is hard to convey what this looks like through an auditory medium. So I need you to use your imagination for a second. I want you to imagine that you're driving past rolling hills, significant mounds, small mountains, if you like. Most, covered in trees and greenery, just rolling hills, one after the other. But then one of them is sort of a white-grey colour. There's basically no green at all, a complete outlier in the landscape. And that is Bald Rock. So what is Bald Rock? I'm so glad that you asked, because I will tell you right now. The granite, which forms Bald Rock, was emplaced into the surrounding metamorphic and sedimentary rock about 247 million years ago, so just a couple of days ago. Subsequent uplifting and erosion has removed the majority of the surrounding sediments, and the metamorphic rocks with Bald Rock remain as a result of its resistance to weathering. So basically, in plain English, what that means is big hard rock got pushed out of the ground from below, the dirt fell off, and now what's left is very hard rock. Trees and grass can't grow on hard rock, so no green. Very bald. Bald Rock also served as a neutral ground for 3 of the Aboriginal nations in the area, which is pretty cool, actually. So these are the Juckambol, the Bunjagal, and Camiliro peoples. It was an important trade route for these 3 nation groups. Meetings and trade occurred without each nation having to journey through the other's territory, as Bald Rock was considered a boundary positioned fairly between each of them, which makes sense because it's easily visible from far away. It is cleared. No trees are going to grow. You don't have to maintain it. It's got reasonable access for the surrounding area. And it very much feels like a natural sort of meeting spot, as it's easily identifiable. It's a landmark you can see from many, many kilometers around. I think it's the perfect place to mark the edge of your territory and come together. Today, the thing to do is to climb it. Thankfully, the local people, it is sacred to them in a certain way, but also they do allow access. So there is a national park. The access is pretty good as well. You can get there just in a car. There is a sealed road right up to the car park and then walking tracks up to the summit. There are four main trails that you can do that are well maintained and signposted. But I think it should go without saying that you will need a decent pair of walking shoes, and impaired mobility is quite limited on some of these trails. But you can get access to the summit. You can walk around on the bald face, where you will get an incredible view of the surrounding countryside. There are also toilets, drinking fountains, barbecues. So come and make a bit of a day trip of it. There is also a small campsite available if you do want to make a bit of a weekend of it. As I was talking at the start of the show, this could be a good opportunity to get out for the weekend. There is only like 12 campsites though, so it's not going to be a big weekend with lots and lots of people. But still, I think a pretty cool weekend out.
That's
bit of
not
bad
bad
news.
though, having that small, like having a small number of people there. That's not a bad thing though.
I've actually stayed at a couple of small national park campsites like that, and sometimes they're absolutely fantastic because they're limited in size. Not a lot of people go there. Oftentimes you end up with a place to yourself, which is pretty cool. So I would definitely recommend some of these smaller places. The bad news for our international listeners thinking you might be able to make a day trip from Sydney, it's about an 8.5 hour drive. So probably don't from Sydney. Definitely possible, but more than a day trip. The good news though, if you're in Brisbane, it's about a 3 hour drive out of Brisbane. So if you're in southeast Queensland, go south of the border, go check out the Bald Rock. Be quick though, because you do need to be careful down there. You never know what those southerners are up to and what they might do. Lock your doors as you drive over the border. But look, this is a quick one. I wanted to talk about Bald Rock because it is pretty cool. I've put as always, I've put links in the show notes. I do think it's worth having a quick look at because it's just something weird and unique. You know how I love my weird rocks, and this is a big one that now I really want to go and check it out. So it's a bit far for me for a day trip, but might stay in the campsite for the weekend.
Well, 3 hours from Brizzy's not bad too. So if you are coming across, I mean, I was going to say there's worse things than going to Queensland, but I'm struggling with you know how much I love Queensland, bloody hell. Nicking into Brisbane for a night or two, that would be, you would see some good countryside on the drive to it, and look, 3 hours there, have a bit of a walk up, have a bit of a sit back and relax and drive back, all very doable in a day. And look, if you're from one of those places where 3 hours sounds like, my God, I'd be halfway across my country, well, maybe work out a hotel nearby to stay. But if you're happy to sort of knock those Ks on the head, it's quite doable. Yeah.
Look, I think for something like this, it probably is. Well, no, it definitely is. It's worth making a bit of a trip. There's a lot of incredible places around this country that aren't super close to major centers, which I don't think is a bad thing. I think it's kind of fun to go on a bit of a drive, bit of a trip to go and check out some of these places. And also there's the few places that are really close to major population centers become really popular. And as we all know, love people, but we kind of ruin stuff in big numbers. And unfortunately, we've ruined a lot of really cool stuff. So sometimes having things a little bit off the beaten path is good. So if you're in the the southeast Queensland sort of corner, particularly if you're in like Toowoomba or Ipswich or something like that, a really cool day trip would be to go and have a look at this thing. So it's pretty impressive, and it looks like, as much as there are walks and stuff like that, I think it's pretty open. You know, you can sort of. I wouldn't recommend sliding down the face because it does get pretty steep, but you can have a bit of fun. Definitely Instagrammable and all of that. So I think
If you do slide down, make sure someone's videoing it.
Yeah, I want to see a picture of you crashing to the bottom. Do not recommend. Do not recommend.
No, we don't recommend that at all.
Yeah, but if you are, video it for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And send it to us. Yeah.
Send it straight to us. Take a skateboard. I'd love to see it.
Wow, God.
So this is another opportunity. Get out there, see this amazing country, somewhere really, really cool, just south of the Queensland border, a little bit far away for the New South Welshmen in the Sydney metro area, but certainly a weekender, and just another one of these cool, weird places that we seem to have so many of in this country. So that's this week's Two Ticks Town Talk on Bald Rock, New South Wales.
Very good.
All right. Scammers fleeced pensioner Ian Williams out of $1,338. So he sued his bank for $379 million. Two men caught on camera buying gift cards at the exact same time and place that $1,338.55 disappeared from Ian Williams' bank account. Looked nothing like the aged pensioner. They were young, slightly built, and as police detective noted to Mr. Williams' amusement, sported more than the 70-year-old's minimal hair. Surely, thought Mr. Williams, this CCTV footage of the men doing multiple transactions on multiple smartphones at a Coles self-service checkout would be enough to convince the National Australia Bank that he was the victim of fraud, not a liar or cheat. But Mr. Williams' dogged efforts to secure evidence to clear his name and get his money back without conditions were, at least initially, rejected by the bank. Mr. Williams said, quote, "All I wanted was my money back. I'd be happy. I'd walk away. It's just been this gradual step by step where I've been accused and been ignored, been brushed aside, and been some trivial little ant. This is just so unfair for so many people that at some point someone has to make a stand." End quote. It's a saga that began in 2022 and has taken Mr. Williams to the Supreme Court and federal parliament. When his efforts with the bank failed, he went to the Australian Financial Complaints Authority, providing it with his evidence. Beyond the CCTV footage, it included a police-verified Google Maps history showing that at the time his money disappeared at the Coles in Melbourne's Badora, he was 180 kilometres away in Bendigo. NAB responded with an offer of money back in full, but no admission of fault, and a non-disclosure agreement which would prevent him going to the media, and of course, no apology. Mr. Williams was livid. He says, quote, "I'm wanting them to acknowledge to me that we're sorry, we've made assumptions that were incorrect, the insult that we've put to you, we apologize for, and we know that wasn't true. Sorry, mate, we did the wrong thing, here's your money." End quote. So Mr. Williams decided to take the matter to court, but he had no money for a lawyer, so he figured he'd just do it himself. Mr. Williams downloaded case law and legal documents. He pored over the Supreme Court rules and arcane academic papers until his eyes hurt, because what he lacked in money, he certainly was rich in time as a pensioner. Then, when he had to decide what he wanted to claim, the money that was stolen from him was 5.5% of Mr. Williams' annual income, so he figured he would claim 5.5% of the NAB's annual income. He took out his calculator and he did the maths, and what came up was an eye-boggling figure of $379 million. He lodged his claim online with the Supreme Court of Victoria and organised with a friend to take the train to Melbourne to personally serve the documents to the proper person at the bank. The bank had a certain period to respond. It missed the deadline. Mr. Williams applied for a default judgment, and that was granted. His plan was to donate the $379 million to Indigenous, homeless, and youth charities, but this was thwarted soon after judgment, with the NAB successfully challenging the result. The bank was in court seeking to have the case thrown out, and the result was a ruling that said, quote, "The plaintiff's claim does not enjoy any real prospect of success and should be summarily dismissed," end quote. So Mr. Williams's case was lost. Under the judgment, he would get his $1,338.55 back, but he was now up for substantially more. He was ordered to pay the bank's legal costs. That would bankrupt him. He said bitterly, quote, "There was nothing in there at all that slaps the wrist of the bank in any way. They just walked away scot-free and up yours to everyone," end quote. But Mr. Williams was already exploring other avenues. After his case was featured last year on the ABC's Background Briefing, Alex Brooks, the Vice President of Scam Victim Alliance, got in touch. Just what the process was in the scam that snared Mr. Williams remains unclear, but it appears that the scammers were able to access his card details and then add them to new Google Pay wallets on their phones. Late last year, Mr. Williams met with his local MP, Monique Ryan, who offered to raise the case in Parliament. Then he headed to Canberra to lobby politicians and attend economic committee hearings into the big four banks. He even ambushed NAB's chief executive, Andrew Irving, at the hearing and handed him a letter asking for an apology to put an end to all this stuff. A short time later, Mr. Williams received a phone call. The bank wanted to meet with him. 3 years on from realizing he'd been robbed, he was greeted by NAB's Chris Sheehan, the executive in charge of fraud, and Craig Swinburne in charge of customer complaints. In Mr. Swinburne's hand held a letter. It was an apology from the bank and a guarantee that the bank will not pursue its legal costs. He tells Mr. Williams that the bank has learned from his case and others will not be treated the same way. For a brief moment, Mr. Williams claimed for hundreds of millions of dollars had a chance. But the money was never the point, he says. That just got the bank to sit up and take notice. His letter saying he was not at the supermarket, that he did not withdraw the money, and that he was an honest man who was a victim of a sophisticated scam, and that his $1,338.55 was back in his account was all that he wanted. Since the advent of the internet and smartphones, scams have become increasingly sophisticated, with losses reaching a peak in 2022 when Australians were defrauded a total of $3.1 billion. Wow. The following year, the National Scam Centre was established and losses dropped to $2.3 billion in 2024. Still a shockingly high number. But that's cold comfort for those who have been scammed because very few get their money back. The Australian Securities and Investments Commission in 2023 report found 96% of losses are borne by bank customers, which is just a staggering statistic. Strangely enough, so this is kind of where we would normally end the story.
So just run that. Say that percentage again.
96% of losses are borne by bank customers.
Wow, that surprises me that it's that high.
Well, that is a 2023 report. Since then, the banks have instigated some reforms to kind of help with that process, some of which we've talked about before. But it is still a shocking statistic, even at the time. Obviously, we're a couple of years fast forward now, but I would imagine it would still be a significant amount. This story has a bit of a twist in that it was actually pulled by the ABC. What I just told you, which was pretty much word for word from the ABC story on this, was completely retracted. And as always, we have our sources in the show notes. And if you go to the ABC link for this story, you will find that it is no longer active and just says, sorry, we cannot find the... actually, I will tell you exactly. It says, sorry, page not found. This might be because this page we were looking for was removed, had its name changed, or is temporarily unavailable, or you may have typed the incorrect web address. It turns out the ABC pulled this from publication due to previously undisclosed historical offences by Ian Williams. We don't know exactly the nature of these offences. So I just want to caveat this that we make no remarks or judgments to the nature of Mr. Williams himself. We just wanted to share this story. The story itself does feel very reminiscent of the 1997 film The Castle, which
doesn't it?
It is a favourite of ours, and I think we sort of wanted to use this story as to highlight the struggles of everyday Aussies that have been fighting scammers, not as publicly as Ian Williams has done. Credit to the bloke; he had some big friggin' balls to go after them the way that they did, considering the amount that he lost is significantly smaller than a lot of other people. But he still had the go with all to take it all the way to the top. So Mr. Williams is passed aside because, again, we actually have no idea what these offences are, so I can't really call to that. But what do you just feel about the story in general? And I guess, do you think there should be a better responsibility on the banks in this case?
Yeah, well, I mean that's the bottom line. The actual story itself, on the surface of it, as presented, I like the story, and we did. We also do have it. DK gave us a link to the original ABC story, which is up on the Wayback Machine, so you can actually read it. On the surface of it, I do like it. As you said, it's got that sort of the castle type of feel about it, and it's got the classic David Goliath thing. It's got the thing of the little bloke standing up to the big company and winning in the end. Now, he had to spend a lot of time on it, but as he said, the money wasn't the thing. It's not as if he was saying, "Oh well, it's $1,338 odd dollars," but I'll only spend a few hours. He was determined to do that. So I did enjoy that part of it, and that it was against the big banks as well. NAB in this, NAB in this one. National Australia Bank, that it was such against a big organisation. It just sort of caught the imagination, and it was a damn good effort. I mean, he did it himself. He went through the system. People are constantly saying, "Oh, there's a system there," but look, if you looked at this and said, "Well, how much is it going to cost to hire a solicitor and a barrister, and it's a Supreme Court, so maybe we need to have a KC, a King's Counsel," and you'd be talking just a prohibitive amount of money. So for him to undertake it himself and be successful and get it through the system, I think that was a very positive thing. I enjoyed that part of the story, and I do find it look, I think it's difficult for banks with a number of scams. I don't think the bank is responsible for every decision by that the customers make. I can't go that far, can't go down that road. There's a certain amount of responsibility that we have to have ourselves. And I would acknowledge that the banks are doing a lot. Sometimes it feels like too much, but they are doing a lot to reduce people's exposures to scams. I think, I do think they stick their nose in a bit too much. I think there's a lot of times when, they're asking, well, what do you need this for? And you're thinking, well, if I'm here in front of you taking this out, and I'm a compass adult, and I'm saying to you, I'm paying someone for this who I'm comfortable with. That's the end of the story. You don't have to start saying, well, do you know them? There's a little bit that does get under my skin. However, as a process, I think there are a lot of things tightened up. I do like how they will message you and flag you if there's something wrong. I do like how they tend to have the things of if you're going overseas or traveling or a similar situation, you can contact them and say, listen, I'm going to be doing this, and it doesn't trigger their things. There's been a lot of that side on working with the customer that has become smoother. However, they're still a big bureaucracy. They're still difficult to navigate. They're timely. They take a lot of time to navigate on different things. And reportedly what comes back, there's a lot of, they're in the winning position where they can afford to have onerous processes, onerous burdens of proof. They can make it hard for you. And it does sound as though they were trying to go down the line here. And also that it just grates on me. And look, I understand legal things are complex, and people who know, just a touch of the legal stuff will probably not be surprised on it. But we're talking about the story and my feelings on it. It just grates on me that he went through the process, he put it in, and they had an obligation to be there on time, and they didn't. And the judge said, okay, well, fair enough, you've done it. And then it's come back, and I'm assuming through some clever legal arguments, no, well, that doesn't really count. It's like that. It's like beating someone in rock, paper, scissors, and then they say, oh, okay, no, best of 3, best of 5. It feels like that sometimes. It's how can we get in there and legally get another round so that we can increase our chances of winning. I did like the amount he sued for. It certainly got their attention, and there was a perverse sort of logic to it. Well, it cost me 5%, so this is 5% of yours. Now I also don't know exactly what happened with his. How whether he was what led to them being able to get this information, and whether there was things he should have taken precautions about. But that's not the story. The story is as presented. And look, you made the comment about we don't know what his past convictions were, and in the interview that. The report I saw with them, he basically said, look, not proud of what happened, not going to go into it. I can understand the ABC. So, fair enough. He accepted that the story was pulled on reasonable grounds. So I have to respect what he says there. And the ABC's obviously got to make their decisions. But it was just a little bit of a sour note in there. But at the end of the day, it was a pleasing result to see that there was a system of justice where the big guy with the deep pockets didn't just walk over the little guy again. So I got a lot of joy out of it, and it's one of those things that adds to humanity and causes a spark in somebody else, and sometimes those things create a whole movement, a whole fire. And he's certainly contributed. He's contributed his spark in the beginning. So that's how I feel about it. What do you feel about the story? Your opinion on the banks and his actual process and experience?
I think, I guess it's pretty similar to yours. Look, his own personal issues aside, because I can't talk about that because I don't know what they were, but he was wronged and just didn't let it go. Had a fair go, and ended up in sort of getting what he wanted, right? In a roundabout sort of way. And I think that's friggin' awesome, quite frankly. It is very much that castle kind of style, right? Where you've wronged me and this isn't right, and so I'm going to fight tooth and nail regardless of what I have to do, and even if I've got no money, it's oh well, this is the right thing to do. And so to his credit, I think he did do the right thing, and he's ended up, you know, with what he wanted, which was pretty simple. And to be fair, like you said, this is one of those situations where someone senior in the bank should have stepped in earlier and nipped this in the bud and gone, clearly this is the wrong thing. Like, we can see you didn't do this, and this is fair and reasonable. You know, the NAB, which happens to be my bank too, big company, big money, making an absolute fortune, you know. So throw a man a bone. Like, we're talking, they you know, they make millions a day. Like, it's you know, like, just friggin' pay the man. You know, what was it? 5% of their operating profit was $370 million. You know, that's it's obscene amounts of money. It's billions a year. Give the man his $1,300 and say, yep, we did the wrong thing. Sorry, we'll try and make sure it doesn't happen again. What I think is great about this story is the fact that it blew up. You know, we're talking about it. It became really, really public, and the banks are getting a lot of heat for the scam stuff, for their role in a lot of these scams, because they do have a role to play. Yes, it hurts them too, which is so frustrating because it means that they should be spending some of their time to actually try and fix the issue rather than just sweeping it under the rug and go, well, another one bites the dust, you know. It shouldn't be the cost of doing business. You should have more of an effort to nip this in the bud when it happens. And I think we're starting to see that tide turning. But it is quite frustrating to be having to deal with this, and for people like him to actually have to go all the way to the friggin' Supreme Court to, you know, like, it shouldn't be like this. It shouldn't get to that level, quite frankly. And I think most Aussies can agree with that. You know, we used to have a culture of fair go and all that sort of stuff. And I'm hoping the result of this is that culture is still alive. But unfortunately, I do feel like we're seeing less and less of that in time, as people become, I don't know, things are changing, and that's quite frustrating to see, you know, to be like, this shouldn't have, it should never have got to this level to start with. No, you know?
No. And look, I can understand the thinking from the bank's point of view, saying, listen, just because someone says this, we don't just keep giving them money just to shut up. I can understand that as a principle. But when he attracted this when he put in this thing for $379 million, there should have been a very, very basic thing, in my opinion, of one of their many, and I'm sure well-paid lawyers, go to him and say, look, mate, we've noticed this. What is it you want? And when he turns around and say, I want a letter of apology, I want you to say you were wrong, and I want my money back, and I won't worry about the rest. How that didn't get to somebody with some level of responsibility who said, I can see the writing's on the wall. This is not going to go well. Just give it to him. He's got a decent enough point. You'd only have to look at a few of his things, saying, yeah, that probably doesn't look like you. Fair enough. Let's do it. But someone who's obviously got bloody pig-headed about this and dug their heels in, and somebody else has got all bloody clever and said, oh, if we admit to this, we'll do that. And somebody else has had a meeting with the other ones and say, this is the type of thing that we need to make sure that we stretch out, because that's how we make our money. And you're completely correct, DK. Just a little bit of listening, a little bit of common sense. This would have been nipped in the bud. They could have said, sure, you don't even have to have a non-disclosure. Tell who you like. And the story would have been, listen, I went through this. I did have to go to a bit of an extreme, but at the end of the day, they were reasonable.
Yep.
That was the win. Instead, in here, they come off as the mongrels.
Yes. Yep. And I guess that's what's frustrating is so often in corporate Australia these days is it's fight tooth and nail to the death, when it's like, mate, what are you doing? Like, come on. Like, it is very frustrating to watch. And I think obviously the senior bank, C-suite guys, once they got word of this, were probably horrified, going, how do we make this? How do we spin this, to make us look good? Because at the end of the day, no one really likes banks. But we at least think they're going to do the right thing by you. And when they don't, especially like this isn't a lot of money. And I think that's the key focus here is it's, less than $1,400. This is, they make this in probably 10 seconds in profit. Like, it's nothing. And yes, I understand they shouldn't be on the hook to refund people that get scammed for everything and so on and so forth. Like, there's obviously caveats and things like that, sets a precedent, blah, 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 right? I get all of that. But the reality is a senior person could have stepped in and gone, look, we can just sort this out privately, we can do the thing, and it's done and it's gone. But no, they would just fobbed him off like they do a lot of other people. And he's gone, nah, wrong person.
Yeah.
And, his personal character aside, we can't speak for that, but to his credit, he's gone, no, I'm going to take them to task. And he did. And just like the castle, just like the stories we've seen in literature, in film for decades in this country, we love this shit, as we should. And I think it's great. Quite frankly, I think it's absolutely fantastic. Love to see it, and good on you, Ian, for putting them in their place and getting what you deserved.
Yeah, agreed.
I hope they continue. We get this trend of big companies kind of humanizing themselves a little bit. At the end of the day, yes, you're beholden to the shareholders. Yes, it's all about money, blah, 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 blah. But you still have to be a functioning member of our society as well. And I think that's been forgotten. And I do hope that kind of starts to come back a little bit. It's an optimistic way to end. So let's move on.
Yeah.
It's now time for This Week in Australian History.
This week in Australian history, we're doing 20th to 26th of February. February 20th, 1913, King O'Malley drove in the first survey peg to mark the commencement of work on the construction of Canberra. 1962, Perth becomes known as the City of Lights when the astronaut John Glenn passed over the city and they switched on thousands of external lights to greet him. Would have been a pretty impressive sight for him too.
Definitely.
Yeah. February, just... You'd hate to be bloody busting to go to the loo and you look at your thing and you think, oh, can I make it? And you'd have to say, oh, yes, it was incredible. It was spectacular. Thinking, I can never tell anybody what happened. February 21st in 1906, The Bondi Beach Surf Lifesaving Club is established, becoming the first club of its type in the world. February 22nd, on 1791, Governor Phillip grants 30 acres at Rosehill, Parramatta to former convict James Roos, making it the first land grant in Australia. 1928, Bert Hinkler arrived in Darwin, having flown the first solo flight between England and Australia. And he'd left England on 7th of February. So what's that, 15 days beforehand? February 23rd. I'll just ask you this one, as I like to. What year do you reckon the first mobile phone call was made in Australia?
Oh, that's a really good question, actually.
Yeah, that's why I sort of paused. I was about to blurt it out, but I thought, no, that's a good question.
I'm trying to think when, do you know what, I might have even asked you this in, maybe you asked me this last year. I don't know. I feel like we've talked about this before.
I'm pretty sure we have, but I'm also highly confident that would have forgotten it as well.
Yeah, no, I've definitely forgotten. It's not there in the brain. I want to say it's it's got to be my gut says it's got to be the late 1970s, but I don't think it was, because that's when the first mobile phones were like invented. So we would have been a few years behind, because it's a chicken and egg thing, right? You need to have yeah. So I'm going to say it's got to be the 80s.
Yep.
Let's say 1986.
Oh, you can almost have that. 1987.
87.
Yeah. Yeah. February 24th, on 1875, the SS Gothenburg strikes Old Reef off Ayr in Queensland and sinks with the loss of 102 lives. 2003, Bendali Debs and Jason Roberts are found guilty of the Silk Miller police murders and sentenced to life imprisonment without parole. February 25th, 1825, Aboriginal bushranger Mosquito, spelled like mosquito but with a U, is hanged at Hobart in Tasmania for his role in attacks on settlers during frontier conflicts. It was one of the earliest executions of Indigenous Australians in the colony. Like official executions, that is. Yeah. Let's clarifier in there. 1961, the last electric tram service runs in Sydney. 2001, cricketer Don Bradman dies in Adelaide, aged 92. 2004, Qantas launches its low-cost domestic airline Jetstar, and they were aimed at competing with the Virgin Blue market that had been built up, which Virgin Blue's not there. The bloody discount airlines don't have a great run in Australia. I mean, there's some of them will get up, and obviously Jetstar's still going, but a few of them, was a Tiger and Virgin Blue and all the other ones. So there's a number of them that just don't seem to be able to do it. So
no, and I can't really say that I'm a big fan of the discount airlines myself, but compared to other parts of the world, where like in Europe, you can get a bloody air ticket for like £20 to go from some crappy little airfield, 3 hours out of London to some crappy little airfield in Spain for the equivalent of like $50 Australian. Yeah. Whereas here, doesn't exist. Like you cannot, the city of Melbourne's the most one of the busiest air routes in the world, and good luck getting a cheap flight on there. Yeah, they do happen, but it's not something you can just on a whim jump on a plane. I don't know why. I don't know why we get slammed so hard. Maybe it's a population thing. I'm not sure. But if you're listening to this having dreams of building a low-cost airline for Australia, yeah, not sure that's a great idea.
Yeah, double check your sums. February 26 in 1942, a float plane from a Japanese submarine I-25 makes a reconnaissance flight over Melbourne and Port Phillip Bay, dropping incendiary bombs near forests, which has caused some minor fires. And that was as part of Japan's Eastern Australian submarine operations. The submarine had, you might know this if you don't, sorry mates of the podcast, we'll have to look it up, but the submarine carried a plane?
Yes. So the Japanese in World War II had a handful of very, very large submarines which had a hangar tube attached to the front of it. It was essentially and is often reported as a submersible aircraft carrier. That sounds amazing, but it's not quite. That paints a much bigger picture than it was. Very, very fascinating submarine, but essentially what they had was I think there was 2 or maybe 3 specially built float planes that had folded wings, and on the front top deck of these specifically built submarines for this had a very large tube essentially where these planes would be folded up and inserted into, and then it would submerge like a submarine would. It would get to the coast. A couple of these also attacked America as well, and the idea was because they've only got a couple of planes, they would drop incendiary bombs or chemical or biological weapons to sort of spread disease or whatever, because they were so limited. And then the plane would fly back to the submarine, land in the water because it has floats, and then there was a crane that would sort of lift it back onto the hull, the top deck of the submarine, which it would be folded up and put back away. This process was not quick. It took, I think, something like 45 minutes to an hour to just assemble a single plane and get it airborne. So great in theory, didn't work particularly well in practice. But we didn't know about these until the surrender by Japan, and neither did the Americans. So no one really knew where these planes came from because it was only like a couple at a time. Dropping bombs, like where the hell are they coming from? It was all very unusual, and it was only as the Americans, literally at the end of the war, the submarine was told to come back, and as they were coming back into Tokyo Bay, it was like, what the hell is this? I think at the time it was the biggest submarine in the world. So yeah, really cool.
I knew you'd know. I knew you'd know that. That's fascinating.
Yep. Very, very cool. If you want to know more, go and have a look. The Type B1 submarine. Yeah, very, very cool.
Thank you. And finally, on February 26 in 1974, the cremated remains of Mungo Man, dated to approximately 40 to 42,000 years ago, were discovered at Lake Mungo, providing key evidence of early Aboriginal occupation and complex burial practices. And I'm guessing that after that discovery, there was some joy and a quite contemplative ale around the campfire that night.
I reckon.
All right, I'm continuing, well, probably finishing, my Prime Ministers of Australia theme. The first one's a gimme, but it's one that if you don't know it, a lot of Australians do, but I know a lot of mates of the podcast are overseas. So here's for you, because DK will definitely get this one. Well, I know you will. If you can't, I will just be embarrassed for you. Which Prime Minister, known for his love of beer, once held a record for sculling a yard of ale, about 2.5 pints, in just 11 seconds while at university?
This is one of my favorite prime ministers. And he has a beer that you can buy today in Australia. It's actually quite a nice ale, named after him as well. That would be Bob Hawke.
Exactly.
Good old Bob.
Yep. Question 2. In what year was, and we do have 3 questions this time, it's sort of morph into 3 sometimes, but yeah, 2 or 3. In what year was Gough Whitlam dismissed as Prime Minister by Governor-General Sir John Kerr in one of the most controversial events in Australian political history?
This was...
And do you know that you'll probably know the day, the date, but what year?
I want to say my initial reaction was 1977, but I don't think it was. I think it was before that. I don't know the date. Oh no, wasn't it on Remembrance Day? Am I getting that? It was, wasn't it?
You're remembering Remembrance Day correctly.
It's 11th of November. I want to say it was 1970. Was it 74 or 75? I'll say 19...
Dramatic silence.
Yeah. Or was it... when was the election? I don't know. I don't know. That's not going to help me. I'm trying to like work out because I know he was only in for a couple of years, wasn't he? But that doesn't really help me either.
No, it doesn't. And I was going to say, I'll give you a hint. The election was in the year that he was dismissed. Actually, was he? I'm going to backpedal on that. I've got to double check that. Surely it was. Yes, it had to be. But sorry, go. So, now I'm involved in it with something I don't know. Yeah, what was the year?
I'm going to say it was the 11th of November, 1975.
Oh, well done. Ding, ding, ding on the money. Well.
Yeah. What a guess. What a guess.
Oh, no, you reasoned yourself to close enough as you do and then nailed it. Now, this last one, we'll see how you go. Who was Australia's first Prime Minister, serving from 1901 to 1903 after Federation? And for bonus points, what was his nickname?
I know I'm pretty sure the first Prime Minister was Edmund Barton, and I only know that because he was the first Prime Minister. I have no idea.
You're right. You're right on that. Yeah.
I have no idea about anything else about the man. I don't even know what party he was for. Do we even have parties back then?
You know what?
Because this is
don't have that noted down in my.
That is a Forex bottle top question.
Know.
Who was the first Prime Minister? I know that for a fact.
Yeah,
that is on a bottle top.
You are. Sorry, you are completely correct. Do you know what his nickname was?
No idea.
Yeah,
is it like some old timely like I don't know, something weird like Hugo or the Bear or something weird like I don't know.
It's got a little. It's got a little bit of that, and it harkens back to Hawkeye, to Bob Hawke, in that it's related to him enjoying a drink. And when I read the nickname, I thought that's not what I understood that nickname to mean. So I'll put you out of your misery.
I got no idea.
They nicknamed him Toby Tosspot due to his fondness for alcohol. I always thought Tosspot was I always thought when someone was described as a tosspot that it was sort of a bit of a no hope or a dickhead or something. But no, someone who likes a bit of a drink.
Yeah, I think it comes from I think that's where it started, but then people begun to use it as you're an alcoholic, like you're, you know, an obnoxious drunk kind of thing, and then it's I think it's morphed in time.
Yeah. Well, look, that probably makes sense, but yeah.
Toby Tosspot, there you go.
Yeah, Toby Tosspot.
He'd like to toss back a pot. I don't know. I assume that's where it comes from.
I'd guess too. I was a bit flummoxed.
But I feel like back then that wouldn't have been a good thing, to be called a drinker.
Well, probably not. Well, not to that degree. They're going to give them a nickname like that.
Yeah. Old Edmund Barton liked to drink, huh?
Yeah.
All right. On that revelation, thank you so much for joining us for another Australia Talks. If you have any feedback or suggestions for topics, please get in touch with us on our email at australiatalks@proton.me. We'd also be grateful if you could subscribe and give us an honest review, as this helps us out immensely. The best thing you can do, though, to support the show is just share it with a friend that you think might enjoy it. Otherwise, join us next week for another episode of Australia Talks. As always, thank you for listening, and don't forget to tell your mum I love her.
Thank you, DK.